unicorn. And it's also fair to say many of them, in their eagerness to grow, have sometimes cut the rules a little bit short, sometimes disregarded them altogether, which I think can create some disruption that's not so great for society. There is more recently, in the past 5 years or so here in the Valley, a second tech spirit animal that's arisen, and that's the zebra. And this has primarily been women founders, but not solely. And their notion here is, we need to create entities, tech companies that have a little more grounding, right, in their environment, in their society. They're more sustainable, so they focus more on profitability over the long term rather than short-term growth. And they're just simply more socially aware. They're a herd animal that tends to be in the collective, and so presents itself in a way that is in many ways a contrast to the unicorn. What I would submit is actually these are not necessarily antagonists. They in fact can be complementary. So if you think about the unicorn in its best sense as a bringer of innovation, you can think of the zebra in the best sense as bringing a sense of sustainability and groundedness, and that these two can actually work together, not necessarily averse to each other. So what does this have to do with technology? Well, as I talk about in my book, and has been really the guiding premise for the GliaNet Alliance, we are today, and really for the last 20 years, have been operating under what I call the SEAM cycles, which consists of four things. The S stands for surveillance. We have 80 billion plus devices globally in the environment, billions more on the way, which are there basically to sop up data. They spy on us in a variety of ways. And by doing so, then it's the second part of the SEAMS moniker, which is the extraction. So the human data that's collected from us, as well as, of course, data all around us in our environment. What's that done for? Well, analysis. We used to call it algorithms. Now it's AI, but it's more or less the same thing, just more advanced versions of using software to sift through and figure out what's going on with the data that's collected. And then the M in the SEAMS cycle is manipulation. The ultimate aim here is influence. Shoshana Zuboff, who wrote Surveillance Capitalism some 6, 7 years ago now, undertook a very detailed analysis of this and talked to lots of people in the Valley who all basically agreed, yeah, our primary focus here is getting people to do stuff that they would not otherwise do, to buy a product, a service, even a lifestyle or a viewpoint. And of course, in social media, we see that happening all the time. And my concern is that this is not just something that is of the current web. It's now increasingly the paradigm that all the major AI platform companies, from OpenAI on down, are adopting as well, because for them, it's easy money from their perspective, and it's ways to utilize what's already been more or less accepted or maybe driven into us as end users on the web, rather than a more relational approach. So why is that a problem? Well, as I mentioned, I believe we have an inevitable AI future. We're already looking at part of it right now, what I'm calling the summer of AI slop, right? So you look out there and all of the low-grade content that's being developed using video and audio and the like. It can feel fairly harmless, but also it's clogging up the pipes. It's confusing people. It's not very relevant for the most part. And I think, unfortunately, it's a precursor to what I'm calling the winter of AI fraud. In the now the day of AI agents, we're going to have agents everywhere in our world, all clamoring for our attention, clamoring for our wallets, clamoring to impress their manipulative ideas upon us. And this combination of slop and fraud is really going to create a market situation where the legitimate users of AI are going to be increasingly crowded out. So part of my message to the unicorns in the crowd in Lisbon was, you don't want this. This should not be a future that you embrace. You might find very near, short-term money to be gained out of this situation, but this is not a long-term sustainable environment where technology can be used to empower people and where legitimate businesses can grow and prosper. So I believe there is a viable alternative, which brings us to the third spirit animal, the mystery creature in our midst, and it is the Akita. So some of you are familiar with dog breeds. The Akita is well known, revered, particularly in Japan, its home country, as a fiercely loyal companion. It's highly protective of its family, very eager to please. It's also very wary of strangers, so very protective in a sense that if the Akita does not know you, it doesn't necessarily treat you well, which can be a good thing if it's trying to protect its family from bad folks. It's highly trainable. In short, it's a trustworthy pet. And so I think that if you combine the unicorn with the idea of innovation, with the zebra with the idea of a more socially grounded approach, the Akita brings a third dimension to the table, which is trustworthiness and loyalty, right? An entity that is actually operating on your behalf, not on behalf of the so-called double agent, as our friend Bruce Schneier so cogently puts it. Rather, agents in the AI world, and of course, other functionalities, other applications that are really coming from the cloud and not really representing us. So, how that translates into the tech world,